Hi, and welcome to Black Women Speak. I am Giselle Shapiro, the founder and CEO of Black Women Speak, the movement, the network, the upcoming book, and yes, we are focusing on the Black Women Speak book series. I'm also the senior producer of Black Women Speak, the network. And I am so honored and thrilled today to be interviewing ZaZa Ali. ZaZa is a powerful, you hear me, powerful magnetic force, and she's also a master teacher. I call her the master teacher of life and energy. She is a 6-time published author, a spiritual teacher, and a consummate student of all things rooted in the spiritual sciences. She's also one of the co-authors in Black Women Speak. It's time to tell our stories. How are you today, ZaZa?
I'm doing so well, sis. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, and thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. How has life been for you and your family, given the current state of our country?
It's been really well for me, actually. There's my family is another story. Some of us are handling it better than others. But for me, fortunately and fortunately, I kind of knew that what we were coming up against today, from a prophetic perspective, as well as kind of the science of what's happening behind the scenes. I foresaw some of what's happening right now, so I have been primed and prepared, through my life experience as well as my research and my studies for where we are right now. So I have actually been thriving since the beginning.
Oh, I love it.
Absolutely. And,
love it.
Using my platform and using my teachings to try to help others do the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you share a little bit more about your background? I did say a lot, but I'm sure there's a lot that I have yet to say because you have an amazing life.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Well, I, born and raised in Oakland, California. And as a young woman coming up, watching Oakland go from a predominantly Black run, government and system to seeing crack cocaine kind of make its way in and change the trajectory of the city. I moved to Atlanta for a period of time, and then I came back to California. But I've always been an avid student of history, particularly African history and African culture, as well as, like you said in the intro, an avid student of everything dealing with the spiritual sciences. So you gave me the honor of master teacher. I would like to think of myself as a master student. And I've always had a fond appreciation for knowledge and for history. And that's kind of what set me off on the path that I'm on now. I've had some ups and some downs, trials and tribulations in my life that fortunately have, given me a different level of clarity and understanding of what's happening in the world right now. So I feel like God, kind of put me in the pressure cooker.
Absolutely.
Be primed and prepped for this moment in time.
Exactly. I'm sure a few of us, ZaZa, have been, the fire's been put underneath us, to say, hey, now is the time, because I've been inspired just like you, and I'm so happy to hear that you're thriving and you saw the signs, and kind of you're instrumental in helping people navigate in today's time. So many people are so stressed out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I understand. And, it's the writing's kind of been on the wall for some time now, as far as, anyone that has read the scriptures before, read the Bible, read the Quran, should have had a proper temperament for what was upon us. I think sometimes we look at those books as either history books or not really taking into consideration what's written in Revelation.
Right, exactly.
So, I think that, and for me, when I really started to understand the spiritual sciences and study the spiritual sciences and realize that we are so much more than just these physical bodies, than this physical reality, that's when I really started to move away from the fear-based consciousness or the perspective of what's happening and think about this in a much broader, right, universal kind of frame of mind. So, I say that it's a great and dreadful day. It's a great day for those of us that are, are focused internally and that know, the time that we're living in, and that have accepted accountability and responsibility for our own lives. And it's a dreadful day for the people who have been running from themselves and hiding in the everyday innuendos that we have a tendency to hide, the mask, so to speak. It will be a dreadful day because this moment in time right now is all about self-accountability and being internally focused.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure, our viewers learned an awful lot from what you just said, or it will make them think. Let's put it that way. Your title the title of your book is The Personal Power of Magnetism. Tell me, how did you come up with that title? And just give us a little briefing on what your story is about.
Well, all of us are electromagnetic magnetic beings, right? Meaning that, when our hearts and our minds are in synchronicity, that we are emitting a frequency that either repels things away from us or draws things to us, right? Now, that mind-heart synchronicity is the key to self-mastery. So even if your mind and your heart aren't in synchronicity, or if you aren't in this higher level of consciousness, you are still constantly attracting and repelling things to you as an electromagnetic being, right? Some people say, well, what do you mean an electromagnetic being, ZaZa? What does that mean? Well, if you've ever had static in your hair, and sisters, I know we know, right? You've ever or had run your feet on the floor too long and has felt static.
Right. That's a good one.
Right. That's we're antennas and receptors of energy. So our brain being a antenna, so to speak, when we think and we feel, we are attracting or repelling things into or away from us. So you hear this, people say this all the times, thoughts create things, or, watch how you think, watch what you say, because it will come to you. And I don't think a lot of us really think that that's real. I think we think it sounds good. It's like, okay, I do need to think more positive, but no, our lives are literally comprised of what we think about the most, meaning, do you have a lack-based consciousness? Are you living in fear? Are you worried about bills? Are you worried about never attracting the man you're interested in? Are you worried about your children all the time instead of expressing and expecting good things to happen to them and for them? Expecting good things to happen in your life, expecting to attract the type of man that you desire and deserve, or are you focused on all men are dogs, right? So those are just some examples of how the consciousness that we own, the way that we think, the things that we expect of the world is actually the building blocks for what happens in our reality.
Most definitely. And ZaZa, you're a big fan of Paulo Coelho.
Yes.
And that's your favorite book, The Alchemist. So it was like, oh, yes, you are, there. And you quote him at the beginning of your chapter. And I just have to read this because it's just a delight for me to share it. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. Thank you.
Yes. And I mean, I think about that in my own personal life, how much, suffering I experience just at the thought of suffering, the thought of, women in particular, let's say when I was in my younger 20s and I was involved with whatever man I was involved with at the time, and being so focused on what he was doing outside of me. Was I good enough? Was I doing what I was supposed to do as a woman? Like getting so wrapped up in a man's, goals and aspirations, so to speak, that I lose myself and lose my own, right? So I think that most of the struggle, they say, I think 70% of the average human being speaks thinks more than 60 to 80% negative thoughts, right? So if we are consciously creating our reality based on how we're thinking, and we think 60 to 80% negative thoughts, and then if we turn around and look at our lives and we see most of our friends or many of our friends and most of our connections and relationships in the past and present, or most of our job experiences, the type of boss and the interactions that you have with your employees or your coworkers, if you think about the percentage of those things that match that negativity versus positivity, it all starts to make sense, you know? So Paulo Coelho, the book, The Alchemist, was a supremely written, very simple, but important, reflection about following your dreams and not being complacent in the standards that life sets up for us.
Yes. Thank you so much, ZaZa. And what do you want your readers to take from reading your story?
Whatever your life experience, whatever the path that has brought you to where you are now. Some of us are shaped and molded in great family experiences, right? Two-parent households, a loving, nurturing support system, a village, so to speak. Some of us are shaped and molded with no family, with no support, right? Some of us are shaped and molded from traumatic, very dysfunctional or negative experiences. Some of us come up and haven't really experienced those things and have, kind of experienced some of the better aspects of life. Whatever it is that your life experience has afforded you, learn how to look at that through the eyes of God and learn how to use that as your platform to spring off into the world. Unfortunately, a lot of us as sisters have come from backgrounds that don't necessarily speak to our greatness, right? We as women have a tendency to neglect ourselves for the sake of the greater good, right? And then we get 50 or 60 years old and our children are off in college and they're having grandchildren now. And, we kind of look back and remember when we were 15 or when we were 20 or 25 and we had a dream that we kind of put on the back burner, right? For the sake of the greater good. I believe that our ancestors and the women that came before us paved that path in order for women like me and the women that are coming up behind me to see the benefit of moving in that way, and also to see how that has sort of handicapped us in fulfilling our greatest and best selves, right? And that doesn't mean that we can't express our greatest and best selves through family. Of course, my son is one of the greatest, legacies that I will leave to this planet and on this planet. But I also know that by me following my dreams and living out my life to the highest and best capacity that I can, that is the greatest lesson that I can leave for my son. So learning how to look at those experiences from the perspective of master teacher, which is what I call them. If you've experienced child abuse or rape or abandonment issues, those are master teachers. If you've had a long-term relationship with a man or a partner that you feel has, damaged you, that was a master teacher, and when you look at it from that perspective, it changes the trajectory of how you're thinking.
Absolutely.
And how you're feeling, which is how you can start to navigate forward to consciously creating your reality.
That's fantastic. And I loved your story. And I'm sure that women who are interested in wanting to know how you are in the place where you are right now, given what you've gone through in your life, you're so empowered and you're so knowledgeable. But you've had some things that have happened to you that you pulled from and became the master teacher as a result of those experiences. And I just adore and honor you and who you are and what you represent. So this has just been such a delight to have you part of this group, because we are stronger together, and I think now is a time in our country where more Black women need to step up.
Absolutely.
And make their voices heard. And you're a powerhouse, I have to admit, and you're helping women behind you to move forward. Because women like me, I'm a mother, I have adult sons, and then I have grandchildren and great grandchildren.
Yeah.
And my grandchildren are watching their parents. And I'm leading the way
Mhm.
to help women in my age group and the younger women.
Yeah.
So, we're all working together, and I'm so happy that we are a part of this movement together.
Well, yeah, and just so I've traveled across the country. I've, met a lot of women, taught
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of different environments. And one of the things that really kind of shocked me, but didn't really shock me, was that there are a lot of women out here that have not had healthy, nurturing relationships with other women. And I would ask that, when I would be in a room filled with women, and I would ask them how many of us have really healthy and formidable relationships with other women. And so once I realized, this is a real issue in our communities.
Yes.
And then, of course, when I was young, not having, proper guidance, the women in my community, the women in my family, I always made a promise to myself that I'm going to reach back, that I'm going to be the woman for the younger women that I didn't have, So again, that was a master teacher for me to take accountability and responsibility to be that. And so for you now, being the chair, so to speak, of moving this movement, or collecting the different women that are all in alignment, right? And putting us together to have a platform to speak to one another, as well as to speak to our daughters and the women among us. It speaks volumes about your character. And I just want to say thank you to you, because I have met sisters along my path that I felt like I could have learned from, that I could have grown up under. And for whatever reason, those relationships weren't facilitated. It reiterated to me the importance of what I've done, but it also makes women like you really stand out. The fact that you take this responsibility serious, and that you are willing to, reach back and put your experience and your life journey in front of us, for all of us to learn and grow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I have so much love in my heart, and I'm God inspired with this movement. Everything that I've done since creating this dream, is coming to me in a way that assures me that I'm on the right path, and it was meant to be. So thank you so much. Yes, you do have the sisterhood with Black Women Speak. I'll tell you, it's guaranteed, because I won't settle for otherwise. You could tell, right? Oh, I love you. Anyway, what compelled you to be in this historical book?
Well,
because you're a 6-time author, so it's just wonderful that you're part of this movement.
Yeah. You going back to what you said, you feel like it's time for Black women in particular to kind of step forward. I have been frustrated, I'll use that word, for some time now at the direction that I feel like our culture is going, as far as what our daughters and a lot of our women look up to and aspire to be.
Yes.
And no judgment, but I have kind of been sitting back and looking at this because I see this imagery kind of taking hold in a lot of our daughters, how they represent themselves. So I definitely, being able to be a part of a movement that is particularly about writing, which I am a writer,
yes,
about sharing our stories and about using those stories to help other women, that was definitely important to me and for me. Just from a spiritual perspective, we are now entering into the age of Aquarius, which is all about the divine feminine energy coming back into the scope of where we are as human beings, humanity. We have been under the rule, quote unquote, of a very linear minded, patriarchal to a large degree, but that's not, I use that language tongue in cheek.
Yes.
But, a very linear minded perspective that has kind of led us to where we are now, dealing with war, dealing with, violence, disease, right?
Yes.
All of this stuff comes from humanity, not just women or not just men, but humanity in general. being imbalanced when it comes to the masculine and the feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
So now everything that's happening right now is cultivating the minds and the hearts of the masses to move us back to that feminine energy, that divine feminine energy, not so that the world can be ruled by women,
right,
but so that all of us as humanity can become balanced again,
yes,
and not just focus on the linear materialistic way that we have kind of been conducting ourselves as a species, but being more so balanced in compassion, that heart mind synchronicity, love, nurturing, empathy, all of those things that are frequencies of God, as I call them.
They are.
Yeah, it's time for us to move back into a balanced space, right? So that the kingdom of God can be among, here on this planet. I think people think that the kingdom of God is a concept that, happens after we transition.
Yeah, right. We're up here in the, right.
So this actually
is here.
A reality that we can build.
Yes.
Right? Starting with self first,
yes,
based on how you think and how you feel, which will dictate if you're living in heaven or hell on any given day.
Exactly.
Right? So we're moving into the age of Aquarius now, where that divine balance and feminine energy can kind of help us to come back to the center. So
thank you.
That's why, And
thank you. You just explained things so well, and I'm sure you're able to help a good deal of people. Your clients are all over the world, correct?
Yeah, they are, and my platforms reach people all over the world as well. So yeah, it's going back to the master teacher concept, and I talked a little bit about this in my part of the book. Going back to my upbringing and not having my mother in my life, and the whole challenge that coming up as a young girl in Oakland, not having a mother, and then fast forward to 2020, and I literally mother men and women all around the world, right? Would I have had the mental and the spiritual and the emotional acumen to do so had I not had that experience?
Yes.
Lack of connection to older women, my mother particularly? No. You know what I mean? So all things really work for the greater good. And that's what I do with my clients. I help them to change the narrative that they tell themselves about their lives and what happened to them, and understand why, those things have served them to walk into their divine purpose.
Beautiful. And do you believe the world needs more Black women to share their stories, and why?
Absolutely. It's when I look back at, the grandmothers and the nanas and the, all of the matriarchs of past, as a student of history, I have always been very, fascinated by the women that preceded us, going back to ancient kingdoms and looking at women like Hatshepsut and Queen T and Ya Asantewa and all of these really, really powerful women from Africa and from all over the world, who were warriors, who were scholars, mathematicians. And I look at their contribution, fast forward 5,000 years or 200 years, and I can still go back and look at their legacy and be inspired from their legacy, right? Well, what do I want the world to say about me 100 years from now?
Exactly.
Or 2,000 years
exactly.
from now? So when you, as a writer, and I know you understand this, you actually implement your blueprint on the world forever.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So if we come together and we share different perspectives about love, about relationship, about marriage, about culture, about business, about finances, about motherhood, about children, about racism, about politics, we come together collectively with the same collective intention and put that into writing to give to the world, right?
Yes.
We are cementing our place in history, but we are also giving the young women and young men, right?
Absolutely.
We are giving them a blueprint, so to speak, of the things that work, the things that don't work, right? And my main thing has been continuously, you've got to find your passion. You've got to find that thing that you love, that makes you feel fire and enthusiastic about your life, and let that be your guide.
Yes.
Right? Because
absolutely.
I was being guided at one point by money, then at one point by love, then at one point just, being a mother and making sure my son was taken care of. And when I was giving more of myself to everything else and not focusing internally, that's when the universe was kind of like, wrong,
Right.
get tapped a little
Exactly.
bit, right? Wrong direction, right? So like,
Back it up.
you realize that you're on the right path because
Uh-huh.
lining up for you. We've got to learn how to read the signs and symbols of our lives so that we recognize, okay, I keep bumping my head. Clearly, this is not the right direction,
Right.
and learn how to listen to the universe as it's talking to us to send us in another direction. So the beauty of the book is that that's exactly what all of us are kind of adding our contribution to help our women and our sisters to do just that.
Absolutely. And your story and the 14 other stories in Black Women Speak, it's time to tell our stories. We'll do just that. We're ready to change the world and uplift humanity through our stories and to create that blueprint for every one of our lives. So I thank you so much for just the way you explain things. It's beautiful. And I've just had such an honor to talk to you, and it's just a sheer delight. When I found out about you and I researched you, as I said earlier, I felt like you were my daughter. I said, oh, God, this is my child. This is my child. Anyway, I just love you, and everyone that's watching this interview, I'm sure you're loving this woman as well, and you're going to want to read her story and the other women's stories and be inspired, be empowered, and want to join this mission, because we are on a mission, because we're Black Women Speak.
Yeah.
We're the movement, and we're ready to change the world. And do you have any parting words, ZaZa, as we conclude?
I do. First of all, your energy is...
Oh, I know, I'm sorry.
Nope, it's all good. It's such a breath of fresh air, to see your passion and your inspiration like that. That's a really, really, really good feeling to receive that from you.
Thank you.
And I'm really thankful to have connected with you, and I look forward to an ongoing partnership where we can definitely use our platforms to push this momentum forward. When we talk about changing the world, the only way you can really change the world is by changing yourself.
Yes.
And so, and you all will see as you read through, what I wrote in the book about my life trajectory. Once I got to a point where I really started to take accountability and responsibility for the way that I was thinking, the way that I was feeling, the way that I was moving and operating in the world, everything around me changed.
Yes.
I've been able to navigate and to, culture relationships in my life without having to be hands-on, without trying to change other people, without trying to force them to see the world through the way that I were, or screaming at the top of my lungs, which I've done at certain points, right? About us, the things that I thought was important. Once I stopped and kind of sat back and made myself my point of focus, my intention for me to be the best woman, the best mother, the best friend, right? The best teacher, the best student that I could be, everything around me started to change.
Good.
So as Black women in particular, as the mothers of civilization, right? The responsibility that just comes with that alone. Once we really start to make ourselves our primary focus, not neglecting our families, not neglecting our children, but teaching the world how to deal or handle us or treat us or respect us, etc., by the way we treat ourselves,
absolutely,
there will be a major shift in global consciousness, because whether we understand it or not, the world is waiting for righteous guidance, right? For loving, caring, empathetic, right? Reasoning, rational, logic, all of those things. The world is waiting for the right type of guidance, and it has to come through the heart, right? So, because we know as sisters, we generally tend to move from our hearts. Once we get our thought processes and our mind and our connection to the divine mind aligned with our heart and our feelings and our emotion, that love, that gratitude, appreciation, abundance, etc. Once we bring those two things into alignment,
boom, girl, I'm ready. We're gonna take this train all over the world, I swear. Oh, thank you so much, ZaZa Ali. This has been a delight to my heart to talk to you and to share you, your vision, your mission, your words, your spirit, everything about you, ZaZa. Thank you so much. And I am Giselle Shapiro. I'm super excited, as I said, to share ZaZa's story and 14 other women's stories in the book, Black Women Speak. It's time we tell our stories. You can pre-order your copy at the website www.blackwomenspeakthebook.com. Order your copy and order another one for a sister that you care about. Okay? You'll be glad you did. And I really want to thank you all for watching Black Women Speak. And goodbye until the next time. And God bless. Bye-bye.